Welcome back. Now, Charles Tarbey from Century 21 now joins us with the latest on the numbers. Welcome, Charles.
Hello, Chris.
Been travelling the world as well.
I have been. I missed last week, which was really sad because actually that was a record week for results. The Melbourne market hit 79.7, almost 80% in the Melbourne market.
And we did actually mention your figure, so I got your text.
Oh, you
we
did
mentioned it last week,
great,
yeah.
because I really wanted people to know about that, because up in the 70s is pretty good. We talked about getting into that range, and Sydney hit the 70s again. If you look at the chart this particular week, it looks like we've gone backwards. It's still pretty consistent, but it was just an amazing week last week, so who knows? It's been an interesting time.
So suddenly when the graph goes down that much, is that a massive sign, or is that just...
You know what, it's still 20% higher than this time last year, the actual result that was achieved. So when you look at it, 61.4% for the week, and you chip in all of the other capital cities and you throw in Sydney at 66 and Melbourne at 68.4, they're still pretty consistent. And they're the ones that we generally drive the figures from because of the number of auctions they do. So I just think we had an extraordinary week last week.
Could it have been, I'm sorry, man, it could have been the last weekend of the autumn period as well?
I'm glad you spoke, because last time Tom sat here a couple of weeks ago, somebody said they only saw the last part of the segment. They said, what was that guy doing there sitting for the whole 5 minutes? So it's good of you.
It's the Charles Tarbey show.
What was it you just said?
Like the last weekend of any kind of warmth, I suppose, before we get to winter.
You know, we talk about the seasons, and I know the seasons don't seem to have applied in the last few years because there's been such an upheaval in the marketplace. Normally autumn is very, very good, but normally at the start of autumn, not at the end of autumn. So I don't know, Stuart. I think it might have been just a rollover of long weekends or whatever that might have occurred. So we've just gone through a long weekend. That might have actually been the slow part of the process.
Because again, the average viewer out there, or the average person on the street, they're listening to these numbers and they're waiting for that one point in time to jump in to say, all right, clearance rates have just jumped, or interest rates have just... Now's the time. But it's not. You've got to take it over three or even 6 month period.
You've got to look at a pattern, and we've had a pattern though, and so that pattern is there now. We had a pattern in the 60s now for quite a number of weeks, whereas we didn't get anywhere near that for a year and a half. So if anybody's looking for a sign, the signs are definitely
80%
there.
clearance rates, under 5% fixing for 3 years.
I think it's still a consumer sentiment issue. I think still people are scared, or they're still reducing their mortgage or saving. I just don't think people are completely confident in the way government is going right now, and it's pretty hard to be when you're not sure what's going to happen from day to day.
So again, another...
You've got to be careful too.
Let's Stuart say
you've got to be careful as far as making sure you've got something to buy as well. I mean, there is plenty of stock clearing out the door at the moment, but there is nothing on the other side to buy.
And I guess we're going to talk about that too.
Chart, yeah,
we're at negative 0.92% this week. We were negative last week. And if you look at it from this year compared to last year, we're at negative 4.14%. So, the stock's not coming on. You're absolutely right. There is stock out there, but it might not necessarily be in the places that people want to buy.
Yeah, so I think we're just missing that homes advertised for sale graph, but certainly a bit of a drop there. And then moving on to the rents here, then certainly just following the line all the way.
Yeah, the line's been pretty steady for a little while now in the last few weeks. It hasn't been going crazy like it was for a while. Sydney's already sitting at 10.64. Victoria or Melbourne is sitting at 7.12, and Perth at 16.56. And you look at all the totals together, it's 11.44. So in the last few weeks, it's been sitting in the early 11s, mid 11s. So that looks like it's also starting to change, because there are a lot more investors out there, more investors buying, more stock becomes available for tenants, then the competition kicks in. And that'll show up in the vacancy rates even more so as we move through. So that hasn't changed a lot. So again, there's the signs. The rent movement's not there because the buyers are getting out and buying a little bit more than normal.
And 2 weeks ago we were talking about my rent is kind of up for renewal, and I said, oh, we've got to down the market a bit just to do it. But again, I rang the agents and they said, look, in this market we wouldn't think of doing it because it is more at the expensive end.
At the top
but they just say,
no.
we'd rather keep the tenant and just keep the rent the same.
Well, Chris, we were looking at that before, and we were talking about the top end maybe a couple of months ago on our portfolio. That's the area that's really creating the vacancy rate issues, because as properties become vacant, particularly in Melbourne and Perth, they were getting some very high rents in Perth, and there's a little bit of discussion about whether they're going to be re-rented at the same price.
And again, because there was a change in law with people being able to deduct it for the foreigners coming over here, so that takes a chunk out of the market as well.
There's a few things that have changed, but certainly I think the market is far more stable and it's not going crazy in that area. in that area.
And so the last graph we got there is obviously the vacancy rates.
Yeah, Sydney's been steady but jumped to 4.08% this week, which was a bit odd, so I was going to keep my eye on that one. Melbourne came in at 2.97. It's been sitting around the threes for a while, Melbourne, and Perth came in at 2.34. But as a total, it's 3.13. So now we're again sitting, we've been hovering up around the threes for a while now. We didn't get to the threes for a year and a half. We sat under 3. So now in the last few weeks, the threes kicked in. So again, there are more signs over a period of time starting to emerge.
And just in the last 30 seconds, you've been travelling the world. How are we faring compared to, say, Asia, for instance?
Asia's doing very well. I was with Century 21 Japan. They've got 813 offices there, so they're the largest brand. They said it's absolutely on fire in Japan, which I was quite surprised by. In New Zealand, when I was there, their market's very, very strong, particularly in Auckland. I think in Australia, we're still sitting at about, on average, about 5:30, whereas the other countries around 7 on the clock.
Wonderful. Good to see you guys. Charles Tarbey, Century 21, Stuart Ball, Bell Partners, thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for joining us at home as well, and we'll hopefully see you again next week. Until then, I'm Chris Gray. Good night.
The information featured in this program is general in nature and therefore should not be relied upon. Guests appearing on the program may have commercial arrangements with some of the companies mentioned. Before making any investment, insurance or financial planning decisions, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you.